how do we reconcile that in day to day in the workforce? Everyone's got to get a job, right?
Mm.
And the big thing that we are all focused on is equity
Right.
and equality.
Right.
These words, which tend to confuse a lot of people.
Equality is easy. People make it complicated.
Go on, simplify it.
Equality is very easy. Equality is simply, and this might shock you,
Go on.
equality. That's it. That's all equality is. Here's an easy way to talk about equality.
How does that apply? I mean,
I'll tell you in a second. I'll explain what I mean by that.
okay.
Has anyone ever told you that best way to make a decision is to make one? You heard that before,
I have.
right? Because it says if people struggle with decisions, like just make it. So here's the thing about equality. Equality is nothing more and nothing less than equality. But here's where people get it confused and complicate things. People start changing the definitions of equality. For instance, we're talking about transgenders. Take anything, for example, right? Let's take men and women, for instance.
Okay.
If it's fair game for me to not hire you as a dude, here's what equality is. I should have the same fair game to not hire her as a chick.
Okay, so we have definitely eliminated equality from the workforce
That's
in
equality.
favor of equity.
That's
would you say?
equality.
Okay, so equality doesn't exist. at this
Equality
point.
doesn't exist in the world barely anymore at all.
Did it ever?
I don't know.
Okay, so we can talk about equality as an ideal, but not something that we even practically attempt to achieve, because it doesn't seem to be a very high priority for us.
It's absolutely not. We live in a world. We live in a world that
Is it a goal, or is it it's obviously not a method, because we're not doing it.
We're not doing
is it a goal? Is equality the goal?
Equality is.
I feel like it shouldn't be the goal. I feel like people have differences and we should celebrate them, or we can just be all homogenized if you like.
It depends what you mean. I think equality should be a goal, but I think I think most people who push for equality in this day and age are pushing for something that is the exact opposite of equality. Just like in the same breath, I'll say that the people who push for tolerance are not tolerant. It's the same exact idea.
Great. So let's see that in action. Where do we see a great example of supposed equality or a chasing of equality, where in fact we're seeing oppression? Where are we seeing that? Or the opposite of equality, whatever that might be.
This is interesting. I'm no expert in this. I won't sit here and claim I've done research and stuff, but I'll share with you things that I hear on the street in the world that I live in.
Let's start there.
I don't know if it's true or not.
Anecdotes.
Right. I don't know if it's true or not. I'll even ask you this because it's such an easy one. If you asked 10 black people whether or not they think they have the same opportunity of getting hired as white people, what do you think they'll tell you?
In my industry?
Anywhere. You asked 100 people. Is it 50-50? Is it 20-70? Take a guess.
Okay, so I think that the popular narrative is that black people do not have equal opportunity.
There you go. So do they? Are they lying? Are they not? I don't know. But if we go with the fact that they're speaking the truth, then maybe there's no equality, which I don't think there is.
Okay.
If they're not speaking the truth, let's look at other areas where people claim to not have equality, which is pretty much any area of your life. Transgenders. I'm assuming 100 out of 100 of them would probably say, I feel like I don't have equality. I think. Or 90% of them.
Okay, does anyone feel like they have equality then? Because you would say that I've heard so many people tell me that in aviation that women don't get paid as much as men, and it makes me crazy.
That's
because we have a pay scale based on longevity. No matter what position you're in,
yeah.
you cannot you will be forcing statistics to lie for your point of view.
Right, but the whole women get paid less thing, that doesn't refer to pay scales as much as it refers to overall. So, for instance, here we have a bucket, and it's filled with employees made up of both genders. And if you took all the genders out of this bucket and split them, so now we have two buckets, males, females.
There'd be more money in the male bucket.
More money in the male bucket. And that's what people say, which, by the way, is true.
It is
true.
Absolutely.
There's more male CEOs. There's more males pretty much with a bunch of things.
Well, for sure in aviation, it's still true in the regular workforce because there are more males, period.
100%.
And there have, by the way, even though hiring is skewed toward females, statistically that is still skewed toward males, isn't it? Because there are more males in the business.
Well, I don't know if it's skewed as much as it is that's all they have to hire.
Well, you couldn't hire 100 men and 100 women.
Right.
Okay, actually, that you could do. You couldn't hire 10,000 men and 10,000
Right.
women because there aren't 10,000
Right.
women. But you could hire 5,000 women and 10,000 men, and somebody would say that's skewed toward men.
Somebody would say that's skewed towards women.
Well, exactly, because all 100% of the women got hired and 1/100th of the men got hired.
Exactly.
Right. So there is...
And that is not equality.
No, that is not equality.
Good.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's not equality. Some would say that's equity.
What do
But-
you mean by equity? Define it.
Equity is the thing that opposes oppression.
Well, that's a whole, okay.
But unfortunately, it's sort of oppressive.
It's very oppressive, yes.
So you'd have the way I've seen it in a chart in diversity and inclusion training that every employee goes through. By the way, I'm not special, in case there are any speculation that I specifically deserved it. But there are, if everyone has a fair chance, they got to start from the same place. And you would have to take measures to make sure that they start from the same place. Now, a really good example, and I mean an excellent example of that, which makes a lot of sense, hopefully, to everyone listening, is that if you invite your friend over to your party to play video games and they don't know the rule, they will get crushed. Not because they're dumb, because no one told them the rules of the video game.
So the starting point was different.
The starting point was these people had video games, maybe money to get them, and this guy didn't. So you invited him over because he's your pal, and now he's terrible at video games. You think, oh, this kind of person is terrible at video games.
Right.
That is absolutely where we get a lot of racism, prejudice,
Right.
and all those kinds of stuff. That is a beautiful example. That is a starting point place, and it references a starting point. It references even a solution, which is why I love it. Tell the guy the rules, get him some video games, and he'll be good at video games.
Right.
This is great.
Fair competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It is a fair shot. That's equity, is
Yes.
pumping in some money to the base level. That's really good. Okay, that's video games. That's children. That is pretty base stuff. Now, you forward it along to the business, any specialized industry, and it's a little late to raise the starting place. And I feel like people just give, I feel like the idea is to give more chances, or all the chances that are available, to people who wouldn't have had a fair starting chance. Now, I'm not really sure that fixes any problem, or if it just puts people who aren't qualified or as qualified in the same place.
The latter.
Probably. Now, if your qualifying bar is much lower than everyone's obvious achievements, then that might be basically equity from the top, which is pretty offensive, actually, because
Right.
it's just, look, it's the same thing as oppression does. In the hopes, it's like trickle-down economics in a way. You make more of one demographic in a higher place, that there should be that opportunity for people who are younger. And surely, don't get me wrong, that's not ineffectual. If you ask a woman in Taiwan, a little girl, what she wants to be, she might tell you, actually, that she wants to be a flight attendant at China Airlines. She might tell you that.
Right.
Because they're idolized. These are big, and they're larger than life. They're beautiful women, and all these things. They exude all these values of the culture. They're the essence, the manifestation of the female of the species. They are the woman. This is who you want to be. No kidding. Went out with a woman who told me she wanted to be a flight attendant when she grew up. I said, "Oh no. Well, what'd you do instead?" She's a brain surgeon.
Whoa.
She was disappointed not to be a flight attendant because she wasn't tall enough, right?
I
But
believe you.
But now she's a brain
I
surgeon.
had to be a brain
Unfortunately,
surgeon. Oh, well.
yeah. It like as a second choice, she managed to make it all the way through all of that and be a brain surgeon. I met lawyers the same. I met every specialized profession you want. It seemed like they at first wanted to be a flight attendant. So I thought, well, why didn't you want to be a pilot? Why is it a flight attendant thing? You're like, oh, women aren't pilots. It doesn't even cross their mind. This is a huge problem in the world of equity and equality. So yes, you do need a role model up there, and you got to stick some in. In fact, you got to stick a lot in so that they get exposed. Is that tipping the scales? Yes. Is it a benefit that outweighs the unfortunate results? Maybe so. In fact, many people would say definitely so. I'm not the authority on this, so I'm just trying to present that moment. And I want to go on and tell you that when I was in Taiwan, I knew a female who was a pilot, right? And she went through what sounds like a 50s style hell in getting hired, which tells you a lot of things. Number one, that we've come a very long way with the measures we've taken. So we've proven our point in a lot of places. Now, I don't know which methods have worked, but we have come a long way. When she sat down in front of the vice president of operations to get her job, he tried to talk her out of it. This is after she became qualified as a pilot. He tried to talk her out of it and say, gosh, you're so beautiful. Wouldn't you just like to be a flight attendant? Your life would be so much better. Your life would be so much better.
That's disgusting that people treat women like that.
It's just so awful. I mean, I am lost for words to say how disgusted I was when I heard that. I mean, I was kind of laughing like this because I couldn't believe that it was real. I can't believe. I mean, of course it happened. I'm not saying that I was given a false story. This happened, okay? So it's just, I mean, though it's unbelievable, you totally see it. When you live there, when you work there at that place,
it's happening.
This is a real story, I promise you, and I've seen crazier things than that.
Man.
So we have taken measures and that have been successful. The fact that we strive for that in the United States is a real testimony to how far we've come and where we're going. So I'm really glad for that. So I wonder now what steps we'll take in the right direction
to make it a equal playing field.
To make it a fair competition, because that's what makes this country great, is a fair competition.
Let me ask you this.
One of the things that makes our country great, by the way.
If the airlines hired fairly, not based off gender, strictly based off who you are, your skills, your background, whatever it might be.
Okay, so let's start with the minimum qualifications.
Whatever. Take whatever airlines look at. I've never hired pilots.
Sure.
Take whatever. I'm sure there's a criteria, and it's different for every airline. Take whatever the criteria is and throw the gender out of it. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Great. Would we have less female pilots getting hired than we currently have? I think yes. Okay. So here's the question. If airlines did that.
By the way, I think yes, because they wouldn't get as many interviews, because on paper they tend not to have the experience, which is a self-licking ice cream cone of reasoning.
Not even that. There's literally a lesser number of female pilots.
There's also that.
That's pretty much all. They're as qualified or more qualified.
So you're saying
I'm just talking a numbers game.
All pilots equal.
All pilots equal. A numbers game.
There are 100 pilots who are men. Or 100 pilots, 90 of them are men, 10 of them are women, which is a gross exaggeration. It's probably closer to 93 and 7 or 95 and 5.
So it's a numbers game. So if the airlines strictly threw the gender thing out and hired as they do, would we have less females getting hired?
Yeah, we'd be literally 90% fewer females who are hired than hired.
There you go. Yeah. Easy. So question, if airlines did that, what would be the real true way to reach equality when it comes to more? And by the way, that's not equality, but if you want to call a equal physical number of pilots, males and females, what and on who is that responsibility laid? Is it on the airline to hire more females, or is it on more females to become pilots?